Hi, this is Pat Moorhead with More Insights and Strategy, and we are here for part two with Matt Collins, Calix's Chief Marketing Officer and EVP of Commercial Operations. We are talking about how ISPs can improve their Net Promoter Scores. Matt, how are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much. Glad to be here, Pat.
Yeah, I appreciate you spending time with us and the audience, really going through essentially, we defined, the challenges in the ISP space, particularly in, let's say, rural, smaller ISPs. Really, you blew my mind that essentially ISPs have a lower Net Promoter Scores than airlines. And that was the big shocker for me.
It is a shock. Yes.
We also, I appreciated, and I think the audience appreciated, you gave real world examples, real customer names of ISPs that improved their Net Promoter Scores, ranging from the, increasing them to the 40s to the 70s, which I absolutely had to do a double take here. And then we finished off about how you segment your customer base into different personas and target audiences. And I was wondering, maybe we can drill down on those changing target audiences. I think that'd be a good place for you to start here.
So, I'll start a little bit where we started our last discussion, which is a little bit of context. So there's a tremendous amount of investment coming into this industry, in part because people are realizing the value and it's creating a lot of growth. The other part is because the government's recognized that, there's a lot of underserved communities and they need to step up and do something about that. And the interesting thing is then we have lots of new entrants coming into the broadband service arena. Google, Amazon, Elon Musk, down to lots of small private equity funded organizations. We call them greenfields coming in, and it's created a situation where to continue to thrive and lead, the traditional broadband service providers have to transform their thinking. They have to become subscriber centric. They have to follow advice from people like Seth Godin to segment their audience, understand their needs, target them in a very personal way, because the way that they will win is not because they can do battle with an Amazon or Google or someone like that because they don't have the resources. They can win based on being much more trusted, local, intimate, and providing very fine-grained service. And that's a very different proposition than I just have to find a way to deliver a great service in your home that's not interrupted, that's low latency, et cetera. And so the GM, the leader, the CEO, different titles, they all have to start to think very differently. And that's a bit of a challenge for us because traditionally we were an access systems company who sold primarily to network engineers and some operations folks. For us to drive that transformation and support our customers and our prospects in making that leap, we've started to look at targeting marketing teams, customer support teams, operations teams, et cetera, who aren't our traditional customer base, right, to help them transform the way they operate. And most importantly, how to use data to accomplish the goals that I put forward, right? How do I use data to really understand Pat's needs and who he is and what his experience is like and how do I make it better? But the last mile is really the GM, the leader of the organization, taking that leap to say, we want to offer a very different value proposition. And so we've organized ourselves to start to go after those leaders to help them completely rethink their organization, how it operates and how it creates value.
Yeah, as I said in the first one, I really think this is next level. And dare I say, you have a partnership when you talked about the academy, essentially an academy that you had to help people along. You're doing a lot more than just selling them equipment and services. It sounds like, and I'll use the other overused term, digital transformation for for these ISPs to fundamentally help them compete with these bigger companies. I mean, I'm getting emails and leaflets like crazy for Starlink, and everybody wants to go in, and they're flush with some of this government money to be able to go after these markets. And in fact, there are mandates which says we're going to give you this money, but you have to go and get into the smaller and sometimes rural areas. And these ISPs are just, and BSPs seem to be up to the task. It's more how do we do this?
Yeah, it is really it's a complete transformation for them. And thank you for your observation about how we're engaging the market. We use the word partner a lot. We're not a vendor, we're a partner. More importantly, many of our customers use the same word, unprompted, which is the most rewarding thing is when one of your good customers says, "Yeah, my partner Calix," right? And we put so much energy into the programs that we develop to enable our customers, and we're putting that focus now on the GM, because at the end of the day, most of these GMs that we work with, they could have 1,000 subscribers in a small community, or 10 or 15. Most of them don't have hundreds of thousands and millions. But what they can do is they can actually invest in a world-class fiber network, great services on top of it, cloud technology. And what they've built is an asset that they control in their community. It's not controlled in Seattle or some other faraway place. And then as they grow, all that money gets reinvested in their community, right? And again, I love seeing Jeff Bezos go into space with William Shatner. I hope he gets to do it again. But I'd rather see the dollars from these services flowing back into the community, investing into assets that the community owns. And some of these, network technologies, they're around for 3 decades, right? It's a real important thing that drives the value of the community. But the GM has to step up, and they have to start to think about, how do I really put in a subscriber experience strategy? How do I think about a network monetization strategy? How do I monetize all these investments to drive profits that I can reinvest and create a virtual cycle? And then perhaps most importantly, how do I go find these funding sources, access them to drive my growth by making these investments and tapping into that capital that's floating around, so it doesn't just go to a few big players? And so we're trying to align, and we have lots of programs we're putting in place to help the GM accomplish those objectives so they can meet the ultimate objective that I talked about, which is building a resource for their community to attract businesses, attract jobs, and change the lives of their subscribers.
Yeah, Matt, maybe the audience, you can play back the 3 core strategies that you're recommending to GMs.
For sure. So the first strategy, as mentioned, is you have to have a subscriber experience strategy. So how are you building a network, and more importantly, putting cloud technology on top of it and transforming your teams so that you're actually enabling a different customer support experience, a different marketing experience, a different operations experience, and how you're using that data and technology. Now, that's a core part of what we do as a business, but rather than going bottoms up and speaking about it in a way that works for a customer support or operations person, it's actually talking about to the GM how they start to develop an NPS strategy and a subscriber engagement strategy, and how they drive their teams to adopt these approaches to achieve the results that some of our best customers have achieved. So that's the first thing, is a set of workshops, consulting, if you will, where we come in to talk about how they can transform their network to deliver 10 gig services, which is, completely out of the realm, out of their thinking, right? But it's within their grasp. The technology exists. And then how they can actually embrace these cloud technologies. An example of something that we help them grapple with there is privacy, right? Every single one of these organizations, one of the first things they say is like, what am I doing? Is it good? Am I getting, a follow privacy things I shouldn't be doing? And here's the thing. They can't afford to have a government regulation expert on their staff. They don't have a lawyer so we come in and we actually have the lawyers who are on retainer that we bring in to say, look, you can speak with them. So these are formal workshops designed to help a GM think about these things and how they adopt it. Not just the technology, but to your point, the processes to make sure that they're doing things right. The second strategy is really a monetization strategy. As they're investing in these technologies, traditionally people would think about them as a cost or a CapEx, when in reality, what they are is an investment they can monetize. So let me give you an example. We are just about to roll out the first carrier class Wi-Fi 6E system, literally first. It's a brand new technology. There's a lot of reasons why it's super exciting. I won't go into it, but the essence is you can easily put in a 6 gigahertz channel for all these new 8K TVs that are coming out that will be in laptops and phones in the home. The point is, rather than thinking about that as an expense, how do you put it into a new package that you offer to your most tech savvy subscribers and you monetize that? How do you bring in a new service like Arlo Secure and bring that in to a bunch of people who go, "Ooh, that's complicated, I wouldn't want to do it." But it's actually a new service you can bring in to change your value prop, and then you can monetize it. And so we help them thinking about, whether it's the service level, the actual value added services, the systems you put in the home. Those are all things that you can create value with and monetize, and then put that back into the network. One of our customers is probably the most profitable co-op organization in North America. And what's really exciting about this is that they are literally taking that money, returning it to their members, and investing in technology. And it creates this virtuous cycle where they bring more service, they make more profits, they return it to the business and to their members, and it just makes a better and better service. So how do you create that virtuous cycle to monetize your investments and grow your business? Companies like Amazon and Google, they know how to make money, they know how to reinvest it. We have to help these smaller organizations think the same way. Then the last strategy, the third one, is your growth strategy, your funding strategy. So there are an amazing array of very complicated government funding programs. And these companies are not equipped to understand them. And then they all have things like, hey, you have to prove that you're delivering the service level that you told us when you applied for the money. So we're building technologies that help them verify to the government, but more importantly, we're consulting with them on what are these programs at the state and national level? How do you apply for them? We did over 100 company consults in the last 6 months where we go in and just say, let us use our expertise in understanding these programs to help you tap into it. And equally importantly, comply. Because if you don't comply, you could get a big fine. And then we also work with private entities, private equity firms who we've developed a relationship with, who are interested in investing in our industry. And we bring them in, and we set up meetings, and we're almost like a matchmaker there. So we have all of these programs that are designed to support those three strategies. How do I, change my processes and technologies to create incredibly loyal subscribers who won't leave because Charter comes in and offers $20 less a month, right? How do I go and actually build a monetization model to make sure that we're profiting from what we do and we can reinvest it in the business? And then the last one is, how do I have a growth strategy to go acquire the capital that I need to invest and grow? Because the bottom line is, if you're not investing to grow, someone else is, and in 5 years, they may own your subscribers.
Yeah, Matt, it's apparent to me the company, you and your team have put an incredible amount of thought into this. You understand your customers and what they're about to walk into. I hate to use the expression arms dealer because that has a negative connotation, but you are helping them be competitive into the future.
Well, thank you. I wanted to say that there's a core element of that, though. At the end of the day, you can say, okay, you're an arms dealer, you're behind. But the interesting thing is, our brand is completely blocked from the end subscriber.
Yeah.
And so the agreement that we have with all of our customers is, you succeed, we succeed. You win, we win, right? If an internet giant comes in and gets into the subscriber home and the subscriber goes, oh, look at all this great stuff I got from Nest or Google or whatever, they don't know who the person is who's providing the technology, the connection to the home. We
Right.
call it becoming a dumb pipe. We don't do that. We help them put their brand first, own the experience. It's a B2B2C model. And that's really what helps us be great partners, because there's never this like, well, wait a second, I just saw that you're trying to sell that same gateway for a 20% discount at Best Buy. And again, if you look at our competitors, that's what most of them are doing. They have a multi-channel strategy. And if I can sell through the service provider, great.
Right.
If I can sell on Amazon or in Best Buy, great. We don't do that. We're 100% invested in their success.
Yeah, and that is definitely unique. So, Matt, it wouldn't be a More Insights and Strategy podcast unless we talked about the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna put you on the spot here and ask you, what do you think the landscape looks like in 5, 10, 20 years from now, and what's the end goal for Calix?
So our end goal is to support the current and emerging service providers who see the same vision we are, which is a fully enabled broadband service provider who understands their subscriber and is delivering the amazing services that they're asking for. We created a chart at Connections where we showed, hey, here are all the applications, Peloton, you name it. Here's your subscriber. How do you build a network that allows them to most effectively access and manage those experiences in their home? And so what we see in the future is there's a lot of current service providers who won't make that leap. And those service providers, quite frankly, are going to fade into the background. And what we see is very strong regional service providers who have a great relationship with their subscribers. By the way, they also have a great relationship with their state agencies, with their local utilities, et cetera. And they're a community leader who is committed to bringing the best services to their community. A forward-looking service that we're pointing to is what we're calling, My Community IQ, which is a software technology that allows all of these local service providers to create community Wi-Fi networks across their communities.
Oh, interesting.
And then more importantly, they can connect in with community service providers who share their same approach and mentality. So we create a partnership of all of these different regional players so that, again, they can start to compete with the really big players. That's a big leap. Now, we have lots of customers who are very excited to go on this journey with us. And we think those are the service providers who will be the full service provider to their community of the future. And those who stick with, I'm okay being what we call a dumb pipe, providing a decent broadband connection to a home, I think they're going to fade into the background. And it's only those service providers who can compete with the internet giants as a service provider and the big telco players and the big cable players. Those are the ones. And they're going to be providing things like Wi-Fi across their community, enabling small business growth. We have a new solution coming out for that as well. Things that they've never done before. And so ultimately, that's what we see in the future. There will probably be fewer service providers, but we think there will be many, and they will all look like that kind of a model. Adopting cloud technology, using data, bringing great service to their community, and doing it in a very unique way.
It's hard to argue with what you're laying out here. We didn't use the word digital divide once yet. Maybe it's overused, but it's interesting to me that we've been talking about this digital divide, and it essentially it stays the same, or it has stayed the same from my point of view, because if you're in the city and you're getting gig, 5 gig, 10 gig asymmetrical services, and then everything that can go across, rural areas are going up, but it seems like the gap just pretty much stays the same. Do you foresee a day or technology where smaller communities could be a little bit closer to something that's in the city, or is that just economically not feasible?
So if you look at the funding that's been approved, there is enough money to bring gig service over a fiber to every citizen in the United States. If you look at the United States, and look at here's the good news. We talked about how the industry overall has relatively low NPS scores, but we know it's possible to have great ones because leaders are doing it.
Yeah.
And I'd say the same thing here. If you look at the fastest, most powerful broadband services in North America, they're all in places like rural Colorado and Texas. So GVTC, who's a telephone cooperative in Texas, probably not too far from you, they were voted by Netflix, rated by Netflix as having the most powerful network in North America. A telephone cooperative in Texas. Okay. So we know it's possible and we know we can do it. And it's almost, we don't talk about it so much because it's almost like in the fabric of what we do, enabling these service providers. So we know it's possible. We know the funding's there. We just have to get everyone organized and encouraged to step up and go do it. And it takes a bit of a commitment. And this is a little bit of the battle that some of the organizations we work with are fighting. There are people who are saying, no, 1020 is good enough, right? And one of our partners I was just with last week said, when co-ops brought electricity to rural areas, they didn't go and say, okay, this 75%, you're going to have, great service delivered from a power plant. You people, we're going to put you on a generator.
Right.
When this refrigerator thingy comes out, you'll probably have to turn off the lights at night to make sure that it's working. We just made a commitment and said, no, everyone deserves great electricity, right? And the good news is so many of our customers have that mentality of not being willing to say, that's good enough for you. You kind of live in a hard to reach area. Right. You'll be okay with that. And we're seeing hundreds of people, leaders in companies who are stepping up to do that. And we know it's possible because it's happening today. We just need to have it happen everywhere. And, part of the reason why, we see this in so many different ways is literally half of our customers, almost half, are not for profit. They're electric cooperatives who brought electricity to their community 75 years ago. And they're saying, it's the same thing with broadband. They're telephone cooperatives, they're municipalities. So these are organizations who, this isn't just an interesting opportunity, it's a core of what they do. And they're really stepping up by the dozens and the hundreds. So I believe, you asked about the vision of the future, I believe that the digital divide will be closed. And I think that the government commitment and the commitment of these community leaders, it's going to happen in the next 5 years.
Very inspirational, Matt. When I was a kid, I lived on a farm for 2 or 3 years, and we pretty much got everything last. I think our first phone was a community line, if you can believe that. It was back in the 70s, which was a long time ago, but still, and the big city folk had real telephones, some even with press buttons versus rotary dials. So I lived in one of those areas before, but I think it's just a real inspiration to think that we can close this divide, whether it be Canada, United States, and other countries. Matt, I think this is a good break point here. I just want to thank you for coming on and essentially painting a real inspirational vision of what could happen, but vision without execution and capability and know-how is fiction. And I think what you're doing is you're bringing the book on how to do it to a certain set of audiences that may not have the resources to do it. And I think your Calix is good for Canada, good for the US and others. So thanks so much for coming on here.
My pleasure. Great to be here. And to your point, I'm inspired every day by our customers and what they're doing. So I'm glad I could share a little bit of that.
Thanks, Matt. So this is Pat Moorhead with More Insights and Strategy, signing off with Matt Collins, Chief Marketing Officer and EVP of Commercial Operations from Calix. Thanks and have a great day. Check out the show notes. Tell me what you liked about the show. Tell me what you'd like to hear more of later.